Okay, so let's start with the history of the Exchange Place. The restoration of the Exchange Place started in 1970 with several different buildings being brought to the property that it is currently on, and the different places that they were brought from were scattered throughout Kingsport, but the original land grant that the Exchange Place is on was purchased from the Pendleton family and the Gaines family, which were the two main families who lived on the property while it was working. It was part of the Stagecoach Trail originally, the very beginning of the property's history, and that's where it gets its its name is because they would ring a bell and the stagecoach would pull up and they would exchange horses because they needed to rest too. Another place that it gets its name from is the fact that every state had different currency at the time, 1850s-ish, a little earlier than that. Every state had different currencies, so you couldn't use the currencies everywhere you went. So it's really close to Virginia, so people would easily come to the exchange place, exchange their money, and then get a good rate because they were really close to Virginia. No matter how, the further away you got from the state you were in, the more, the higher your rate was. So it was better to go somewhere closer, and this was right in the middle of everything. Also, it was a change of trails, so not only was it just exchanging all these other places, it was where the trail changed. And it probably gets its name, this is probably the most easiest way that most of the historians assume that it gets its name, is that it was exchanged from one family to another family, so therefore it is the Exchange Place. It serves about 10 to 20,000 people a year, annually, so every year they can expect around 10,000 to 20,000 people to come to all of their festivals and just to visit, and it's not open like most other museums daily. It's mostly open on the weekends and festivals. It's entirely based on volunteer work. There's not a single paid staff member that works there. It's all completely committed to working on volunteer time. The only person that is there all the time is the caretaker, who happens to live in a house on the property. But other than that, everybody else is just commutes, and people commute from different states. It's a great community. They turn down government funding, and that's what makes it different than a lot of other nonprofits, is they're given the chance to have state funding where it is a national or a state historic site, but they chose not to because they wanted the people who were there to be there because they loved it, not because they were being paid. So that is why there is no government funding, so it's entirely supported on donations and volunteer work and everything like that. And they use all of the donations to restore the farm. So when asked if they were to receive government funding, what they would use it for, my supervisor said that the one thing that they would want money for is so that they could completely restore it. And they wish that they could pay certain people who come to volunteer, because they do things there that are lost. Things like blacksmithing that nobody does anymore. And they have a couple that come, and they would love to be able to pay them to show them that what you are doing is not being unrecognized. It's cool that you are wanting to stay with historical things, you chose to learn this. So that is the one thing that they said that they would love to be able to pay for. What's so unique about this nonprofit compared to a lot of another nonprofit is, yes, you are not serving a needy child or needy families or anything, but you are teaching history to kids that will live here. Probably they could live here the rest of their life, or they've grown up here. And I think it's extremely important to learn your history. I have family scattered about, and my dad is from here, my mom's not, but I always thought that I was like kind of like a foreigner because I knew my family had came over from another country in the 1900s, so I knew that I wasn't like deeply rooted here. But because of volunteering here, we've decided to dig into our family tree, and we found out that we're actually we have very strong ties to the Revolutionary War and to Daniel Boone and all these crazy things, and it really gives you a sense of pride in your family and in your country. And that's why I think it's so important that you come and volunteer here. But not just history and volunteers and stuff, but it really does serve a lot of kids and a lot of adults who have no clue that they are standing in a historical hotbed. You think this is just a boring area, and then you realize that it really isn't. And I also really respect that it is funded entirely on volunteer support and donations. I think it's cool that they thrive off of what is given to them. And also the events are really fun. Every event that I've been to there, they've tried to throw you into the past. I made a candle the other day, which it kind of looks kind of weird, but I made a candle the other day, and I've learned lots of different traits that I would have never known before. And so what I've learned is that I really do love history, and I think it's important that other children learn history of the area that they will live in and grow in, and I think it'll make them responsible voters and citizens to come. Thank you.